You must have heard a lot of people say that we should not mix football and politics, despite its history of being used as a mean to gain support and popularity by politicians across the world.
Before the game commences, the great Italian crowd roars a welcome to Signor Mussolini.
المريح اللي يؤدي وإن شاء الله القادم أفضل. فأنا ما أبغى أي أحد يكون تحت ضغط نفسي يمكن يأثر حتى على
somehow affect your image in the
Well,
world.
if sport washing gonna increase my GDP by 1%, and then I will continue doing sport washing.
And the football world has also experienced many bizarre and even tragic incidents purely because of political decisions.
من قطر، من بلاد العرب، أرحب بالجميع في بطولة كأس العالم 2022.
Amnesty, in its fifth report on the country, details abusive conditions for people on projects for the 2022 Football World Cup. Amnesty interviewed 132 migrant construction workers rebuilding the Qualifier Stadium, due to be the first World Cup venue to open.
One such event, which is not so famous but was quite bizarre, happened in Chile during the Cold War. After a US-backed military coup overthrew Chile's democratically elected government and the USSR severed ties with Chile, which led to the Chilean national team playing a World Cup qualifier without an opponent on the pitch. After World War II, the United States and the Soviet Union became two global superpowers. With time, tensions between them grew very fast due to their desire to increase their influence and control on the rest of the world. The division of Germany laid the foundation for the Cold War, an era of political and ideological tension between the two superpowers and conflicting ideologies. With Guatemalan military coup and Cuban Revolution, Latin America also became a battleground for the Soviets and the US to expand their influence. And now there was a socialist government in Chile when Salvador Allende became their president in 1970. Allende's program aimed to advance workers' interests and replace the judicial system with socialist legality. Female workforce participation was also significantly increased, and it paved the way for more women to go for higher positions. His policies were based on nationalization and equality. It had always been a strong voice for the labor class. Allende also had some huge supporters in the Chile football team, two of which were Leonardo Vélez and Carlos Quezli, whose left-leaning was not hidden from anyone. Chile, under Allende, became a strong ally of Soviet Union and other communist nations. But US President Richard Nixon was not happy with this growing socialization in Chile and their close ties to the USSR. The Nixon administration organized secret operatives and used US financial pressures to destabilize Allende's government and stop the rising Soviet influence in the region. In fact, the US did not want the Allende government to even form in the first place. Both the US and USSR tried to influence the 1970 Chilean elections to have their supported candidate on the chair. With the help of CIA, US tried to push narratives against Allende and socialism, but failed and he won the elections. This, however, did not stop them from taking further actions in overthrowing the democratically elected government of Chile. Nixon and the then US National Security Advisor Henry Kissinger were determined to get a US ally back to the power in Chile, whether democratically elected or not. On September 11, 1973, a military coup led to overthrow of the government in Chile. The presidential palace, La Moneda, was targeted by bombings, resulting in seizure of power by General Augusto Pinochet's military junta. President Allende took his own life to protect his honor. After this military coup, what followed was a very long period of military rule, dictatorship, torture, and heavy punishments for left supporters and anyone who opposed the military government. Thousands of prisoners were rounded up and taken to detention centers around the country. Chile was a strong ally of the USSR before this coup, but now their relations have severed quickly. As per the FIFA rules of that time, European teams were required to play a South American team to qualify for the World Cup, and Chile was drawn to USSR. The match was scheduled in Moscow. Chilean players were warned of security concerns, but landed safely apart from the cold welcome in Russia. The match ended with a goalless draw, which was disappointing for the USSR, who expected a comfortable win against what seemed to be a relatively weaker side. It was mainly due to two reasons. First, Russian side underestimated the Chilean team, who were instead very well prepared, despite not being very aware of Russia's style of play. Second reason, or maybe the main reason, was the wrong or biased referee decisions in the favor of Chile team, as admitted by many, including Chilean players, that the Brazilian referee was anti-communist and made several wrong decisions against the Russian side. After this draw, the match was going for second leg, which would be played in Chile. USSR refused to play the second leg in Chile due to the venue in which match was going to be played. It was Estadio Nacional, the National Stadium of Chile. USSR refused to play there because it was one of the biggest, or maybe the biggest and most famous detention center used by the military government for activists and dissenters. The place was used for imprisonment, torture, and even killing of many prisoners. And because of this, USSR was completely against playing in the stadium, especially when those tortured were largely left sympathizers. USSR asked FIFA to schedule the match at a venue in another country. Chile opposed this request strongly, as they did not object to play the first leg in Moscow. But USSR did not agree to that and expressed their discomfort in playing in a stadium stained with blood. FIFA sent its delegation to the stadium for investigating the same, led by Abilio de Almeida, Vice President of FIFA, and General Secretary Helmut Kaiser. After just a quick tour of the stadium and facilities, they decided that the stadium was fit for match, even though thousands of prisoners were still detained in that stadium, but could not scream for help as they all were held at gunpoint. The clean sheet from FIFA in completing their investigation or inspection so fast was not surprising, considering FIFA's history of compromising its morals for personal gains and the people who were running FIFA at that time. Stanley Rose was the president of FIFA at that time, an Englishman and a very controversial figure who supported the apartheid-era South African Football Association. And the vice president Abilio de Almeida was a Brazilian and supported military regime in his own country. He even said, "Don't worry about the international media campaign against Chile. The same thing happened to Brazil. It's going to stop soon." But despite FIFA's green light, the Soviets did not move from their stand. They protested and made it clear that they will not play in that stadium. They also raised concerns about how FIFA handled the situation. A day before the match, USSR formally announced that they will not travel to play. On moral grounds, the Soviet sportsmen cannot at current times play in the Santiago Stadium, which is stained with the blood of Chilean patriots. The Soviet Union makes a resolute protest and declares that under the present conditions, when FIFA is acting against the dictates of common sense and allows the Chilean reactionaries to lead her blindfolded, it must refuse to take part in the playoff match on Chilean soil and holds the FIFA administration responsible for it. Chile proceeded to play the match nonetheless. The president of Chile Football Federation announced that the Soviets have been disqualified from the playoff. But as per the requirement, Chile had to be present in the match, and hence they played the match in the stadium without an opponent. Chile qualified for the World Cup, which was to be held in West Germany in 1974. Chile entered the World Cup after one of the most controversial matches in football history. They faced heavy criticism from the fans around the world. But their World Cup stay did not last beyond the group stage. They were eliminated without winning a single match and scored just one goal. Even their forward Carlos Caselli became the first player to receive a straight red in the World Cup. But a reason for his poor performance was attributed to the brutal torture given to his mother by the military government, which was said to be a direct warning to Carlos not to speak against the military, especially abroad. Carlos Caselli, while remembering the match, once said, "That team did the most ridiculous thing. It was a worldwide embarrassment." Military rule in Chile ended in 1990, when an elected government came to the power. But the time of junta is still a hot topic in Chile. While Estadio Nacional or Santiago is still used for football matches, but a section has been dedicated to the memory of prisoners who were detained and tortured during military government's time. A Chilean journalist recalled the comments of a fan during the match who said, "Surely we are going to go down in history, because we must be the first team in history that, without any shame or embarrassment, scored a goal against a ghost team." But FIFA's decision to insist on playing only at Estadio Nacional remains baffling and led to one of the most embarrassing and weird matches in football history. It is one of the many huge examples of how much football and politics are related, no matter whether you want to mix the two or not.